Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Thank you for tuning in to the America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you some uplifting stories in these trying times. To start us off today, passing at age 103, actor Kirk Douglas gave away his entire $61 million fortune to charities. A legend during the golden age of Hollywood, Kirk Douglas was best known for his performances in films like Spartacus, and he was also a golden-hearted philanthropist. He continued his charitable giving even after his death on February 5th, donating the majority of his $61 million fortune to charity. It is with tremendous sadness that my brothers and I announce that Kirk Douglas left us today at age 103, wrote his son Michael, who did not receive any of his father's inheritance, not that he needed it. To the world, he was a humanitarian whose commitment to justice and the causes he believed in set a standard for all of us to aspire to. According to reports, charitable recipients included St. Lawrence University to help fund the Kirk Douglas Scholarship for underprivileged students, primarily those who grew up in poverty, like Kirk did himself during the Great Depression in the 20s and 30s. Kirk Douglas has been transcendently generous to St. Lawrence University and remained committed to his alma maters and our students throughout the decades, said the school's president. The contributions also went to St. Westwood's Sinai Temple, Culver City's Kirk Douglas Theater, and Children's Hospital Los Angeles, which also had previously received large donations from the Oscar-winning actor, including $2.3 million to purchase new equipment for the pediatrics division. Douglas also made a significant difference in the lives of aging entertainers like himself, except those who need assistance in their golden years. In 2015, on his 99th birthday, he gave $15 million to build the Kirk Douglas Care Pavilion to help care for up to 80 Alzheimer's patients in the entertainment industry. His son and fellow actor Michael Douglas, who also has a personal net worth in the millions, concluded his announcement saying, "Let me end with the words I told him on his last birthday, which will always remain true. Dad, I love you so much, and I'm so proud to be your son." The generosity of these people is really overwhelming to me because it'd be so easy for them not to be generous with their millions. You could see people becoming so greedy with them and wanting to hoard them away and wanting to keep their millions and wanting to step on the poor in order to do some, like many millionaires and billionaires do. But these stories really keep you going for the good in America that that they are using their money for good rather than just for themselves. Another incredible celebrity story. I'm sure you've all heard about the kindness of Keanu Reeves. He has done so many lovely things, but this one in particular, dozens of airline passengers were stranded at a California airport after a mechanical issue forced their plane to make an emergency landing. But the jilted travelers were soothed and entertained by a very special passenger, Keanu Reeves. We already know that Keanu is a secret charity hero. For 15 years, he's played a blockbuster role for kids with cancer, raising funds and making personal visits after his sister's diagnosis of leukemia. Until his connection to the foundation was leaked in 2018, he'd done it all anonymously, but he didn't hide his face in the fight last week, which left dozens stranded on the ground in Bakersfield, California, just 2 hours north of their LA destination. Throughout the airplane ride, Reeves had reportedly been very amiable and talkative with airline employees. He had enthusiastically been talking about his new project and agreeing to take pictures with eager fans before the plane was forced to make its landing. Rather than using his celebrity resources to flee the airport in private, the Canadian actor worked with airline staffers to arrange a fleet of vans to escort every single one of the passengers to their exact destinations. Reeves himself hopped into one of the vans and spent the next 2 hours entertaining his fellow travelers, playing California country music on his phone while reading aloud fun facts about Bakersfield. Its population is about 3,800,000, he read in a bemused tone, making it the 9th most populous city in California. After playing tunes by Bakersfield South, the passengers were dropped off one by one, with Reeves bidding them a cheerful and fond farewell, sending them on their way. Someone posted the video on Twitter saying, Keanu got stranded somewhere in California and had to take a bus instead of a plane, and some guy filmed the entire experience, and I'm begging you all to watch it. I agree. I implore you guys to watch this one. He's such an incredibly generous man with his time and his money and his heart and personality, and time and time again he overwhelms me with his generosity of spirit. And in case that wasn't enough for you, in case you didn't realize that this wasn't the first time that the John Wick actor has made headlines for being such a cool, down-to-earth guy, recently it was revealed that when two women who were just in awe of the film star broke into his property, rather than calling the police like most people would have, he invited them in for a beer. In 1990, these women had been visiting California to see one of their boyfriends play in a softball tournament. And since she was a star, or since she was a fan of his, her cousin took her to the property, jumped the fence, walked to the driveway, and knocked on the front door. When we, after getting a few pictures of the movie star, they bid him a farewell, got the pictures developed, and due to a mishap with the film, they were close to losing the photos. They exposed film to they exposed the film accidentally, and only 3 pictures were not yellowed. So no one would have ever believed them, but they did have those 3 photos left. So it's pretty beautiful when celebrities are generous like that, but so can the general population. We'll talk about that when we come back.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. So when we left off, we were talking about the generosity of some incredible, famous Canadians and Americans giving away their time, resources, etc., to a charitable cause or to the general population, just because they have the ability to, and instead of being selfish with their resources, they've been very generous with them. But you don't have to be a celebrity to be insanely charitable. In sunny New Wales, Australia, Sheila Woodcock passed away in May of last year, fulfilled, having spent a private life enjoying travel, horticulture, chocolate, animal companionship, and acting. Unmarried and without kids, Sheila had several close personal friendships throughout her long life. But however close they were, and however often they noticed handwritten thank you letters from various charities repeatedly arriving at Sheila's mailbox, none of her friends or family members would have imagined that she had amassed a $14 million estate by the time of her death. Her second cousin, Kent Woodcock, knew that she was well off, but couldn't believe the extent of her wealth. Kent was a dear friend and a guardian to Sheila, and it came to the responsibility of carrying out the savvy investor's last will and testament to grant the entire fortune to 14 Australian charities. Speaking with the Newcastle Herald, Kent Woodcock, having invited representatives from the 15 charities to Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service Facility, revealed the charity members were gobsmacked when they heard the news. She did not share her will with anybody. I only found out in the last 6 months, said Kent. Sheila left $1.375 million to the helicopter rescue service, a gift which they said was deeply humbling, and that would be used to fund high-tech training equipment like high-fidelity winch simulator and a live hoist training tower to practice retrieving souls from the ground while the helicopter is in flight. A clear friend to the aviation rescue industry, another $1.375 million went to the Royal Flying Doctor Service for the purchasing of a new plane engineer and other essential pieces of equipment. Having donated $200,000 to the RSPCA New South Wales throughout her lifetime, the Animal Rescue Service found themselves on the receiving end of yet another $1.375 million, which will allow the organization to move their entire veterinary hospital to a brand new building. What a transformational community member. It blows me away, said RSPC New South Wales CEO Steve Coleman. one of the largest education-oriented charities in Australia. The Smiths Family Partnership received $340,000 bequest on Sheila's will, which they called transformative. The money will go towards the Learning for Life program, the Art Castle, to help children access educational opportunities that they might not reach on their own by creating the Sheila Woodcock Memorial Scholarship. Other recipients of the woman's generosity cover the fields of health, humanity, and discovery. The Scots Kirk Presbyterian Church in Hamilton, the Salvation Army, Diabetes New South Wales, the Garravin Institute of Medical Research, and Guide Dogs of Australia all received $1.3 million. Smaller sums were also given to Vision Australia, the Heart Foundation, Cancer Council, the Australian Red Cross, World Vision, and Breast Cancer Trials to fund dedicated research, and the Sheila Woodcock Travel Grant to help young doctors attend breast cancer trials, an annual scientific meeting. I don't think anybody in Newcastle has ever done something like this, and I don't know when we'll ever see it again. Of course, it's much easier for maybe celebrities to be able to share their wealth, considering as they have so much and more coming in all the time. However, it doesn't make it less amazing. For example, Brian Johnson is not just the frontman of legendary rock band AC/DC, he's also a beloved philanthropist. Case in point, the singer and his wife, Brenda Johnson, recently donated a massive property in Sarasota, Florida, to help building a new housing campus for foster kids and siblings. The property, which was donated to the All-Star Children's Foundation, sold for net proceeds of $335,000, all of which will be used to finish building the organization's Sarasota-based campus of caring. Since the non-for-profit is dedicated to transforming foster care through innovative and compassion, the campus features 6 foster family homes that will provide children who've experienced abuse or neglect with nurturing family-style home environment and comprehensive trauma-sensitive treatment. Siblings will get together, and parents and caregivers will be offered a range of innovative services. Not only that, it will include a center for trauma-focused clinical services, a computer learning lab, a playground, clubhouse, and an outdoor movie theater. The campus is set to open very soon. We're so grateful to Brenda and Brian, says Gracie McGillicuddy, an All Stars co-founder and board chair. We're prepping to open our campus to children very soon, raising funds, so it's important in this crucial time. They've taken us leagues closer to making this dream a reality. When the rock star was asked about his motivation for donating the property to the charity, he simply said, "They've brought a community together, a common cause to help children who've grown up in unpredictable households where violence and neglect may have occurred. There is no greater good than what they've achieved in building the All-Star Children's Foundation campus, and Brenda and I are honored to be a part of it," he concluded. These stories of generosity have been really beautiful for me to hear about. And these are mostly monetary generosities. Even the Keanu Reeves one was, because he did pay for them to get to their destinations as well. However, there are plenty of other stories of generosity coming up. In fact, most of this episode is dedicated to that. So when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking about the generosity of a former preemie who is helping more preemies achieve their goals when we return from the break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. When we left off for the break, we were talking about mostly monetary generosity. And now, Anushka Twaller was born remarkably early, entering the world at 27 weeks and weighing just 2.2 pounds. Now a Girl Scout, the Georgia teen has unveiled an extra large size of compassion for other preemies and their families. At 14 years old, she carries no ill effects from her ordeal as an infant, and yet she remembers some early stories about her and her brother, who was also preemie. My dad used to tell me how he would read to me and my brother at the hospital every single day, Anushka told Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and how it was beneficial to a child's brain, and it was a good way to bond with a child through an incubator. Now, through a project, she wants to give other premature babies every chance to overcome their early challenges. Babies born extremely early cannot be held by their parents, but rather must remain in their incubators in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. In this state, it becomes highly recommended that parents talk, sing, or read aloud to their children. This desire helps preemies, and let Anushka, go door to door in her Atlanta neighborhood, asking for donations to a children's book for the NICUs of Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and Emory Johns Creek Hospital. Anushka T is being showcased in the news for her project setting up mini libraries for neonatal intensive care units. Her project is supporting the NICU of both hospitals, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Scottish Rite, and Emory Johns Creek. So congratulations for Anushka being one of Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta's Silver Award Council of Young Women's distinction. For another very endearing hospital story, when two very young hospital patients were undergoing treatment in isolation, their friendly custodian took it upon himself to help them form a lasting friendship to their shared love of Lego. Kijana, or KJ Upshaw, is responsible for regularly changing the linens of all 82 patients in rooms in the bone marrow transplant unit at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital in Ohio. Earlier this year, Upshaw befriended a 7-year-old patient named Cohen Bramley, who was always playing with Legos. Upshaw noticed that there was another boy across the hall named Keegan Atkins, who also spent his spare time building elaborate structures out of the toy bricks. Upshaw believed that both of the boys were destined to be friends, but because of the hospital's isolation rules, they were unable to visit each other's rooms. Upshaw then spent the following 9 months helping the boys to form a friendship by swapping messages and communicating between them about their Lego creations. Cohen's mom, Carrie Bramley, told the hospital it was kind of like a daily report on what the other child was building. And so he kind of enjoyed getting to hear about what someone else had in common with him while he was there. And just getting to talk to KJ. Because, our world is pretty small right now. We were in that room, and Cohen was in isolation, and he couldn't leave, and it just brought a bright spot to the day when KJ would come in and just sit there and chat with Cohen for a second. The friendship helped both of the youngsters recover, and they were finally able to meet in person. On the day Keegan was well enough to go home from the hospital, Cohen was healthy enough to wear a mask and walk across the hall to Keegan's door so that he could give him a Lego set as a farewell gift. The boys' mothers are already arranging a Lego playdate for the boys once Cohen is out of the hospital, and it's all thanks to Upshaw. And this generosity in children's hospitals doesn't stop there. Ever since he was a kid, Kevin Gatlin has been bored by the monotonous environments of hospital rooms. So as a means of making it sure that his children were never forced to endure the same tedium, he came up with a simple solution to help hospital doldrums. Gatlin, the mastermind behind Playtime Adventurers, an interactive set of bed sheets that feature dozens of games and lessons for children confined in their hospital beds. The entrepreneur from Charlotte, North Carolina, first got the idea for the bed sheets after he went to go visit his friend's hospitalized child several years ago. Heartbroken by the idea of the child spending hours upon hours in a plain white room, thought about how his wife had always played games in his son's bed in order to help him fall asleep. Gatlin then spent the next 2 years developing the sheets so that children could be entertained from the comfort of their own bed. He also worked with several school teachers in order to make the games educational. We put together bed sheets and slumber bags that cover everything from geography, math, science, grammar, word find games, in all three-piece set. All in a three-piece set. To date, Gatlin knows that his sheets are being used in 10 different hospitals across the country. But since his customers are unable to download or to donate bed sheets to their own local hospitals, that number could be, but since his customers are able to donate bed sheets, the number could be much higher. Parents can also buy the interactive sheet for their own children at home, but Gatlin hopes that his invention will make it to hospitals around the world. If you want to donate, go to playtimeadventures.com. It's adventures spelled with an E, by the way. So these stories have been really uplifting for me, talking about children's hospitals and the good that you can do by donating to them. Because it's so unfair for children to have to spend the first years of their lives stuck in a hospital. But it is incredible what the hospitals can do to make them better, and what people can do to make their stay at hospitals even better. So if you have the ability to donate and to help out with these causes, please do, because there is nothing better than making a child's life better than that. And speaking of that, the generosity of the most unlikely sort to help children that have suffered from abuse. When we return from the break, I'll reveal to you who that is. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. And when we come back, it'll be revealed.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. When we left off, we were talking about people's generosity to help those children who have been living the first years of their lives in the hospital. And now, hundreds of abused children around the world have been getting emotional support and protection from an unlikely source: biker gangs. Bikers Against Child Abuse is an international non-for-profit that recruits volunteer bikers as a support system for kids suffering from parental abuse. The bikers go to great lengths to make the child feel comfortable and safe in their presence. In addition to gifting their child with their own BACA vest, the bikers adopt kid-friendly pseudonyms like Pooper and Scooter. If the child has a bad dream in the middle of the night, their gang of leather-clad protectors will stop by for a visit. If the family is afraid of their abuser visiting their home, then the BACA bikers will stand watch until the danger is past. Furthermore, if a child is forced to give a testimony of their abuse in court, then the bikers will escort the child all the way to the stand. Over the course of the past 20 years, the organization has been offering their services from New Zealand and Australia to Canada and the United States. Prior to volunteering their services through BACA, each of these bikers undergoes an extensive background check and takes intervention training for handling such situations. None of them are financially reimbursed for their gas money or time. Each of them only does it through the kindness of their hearts. The grandfather of a BACA-protected boy told Arizona Central, "We'd do anything to keep them safe, but he doesn't know that." Upon nodding towards the bikers, he says, "They make him feel safe, and they make him feel like we are safe." Until we got involved with BACA, we just 100% felt lost and alone. It's just such a relief that there's someone else on his side. Another incredible story about people suffering from abuse. Getting out of an abusive relationship isn't easy, but actually packing up and moving out is even more daunting. Hundreds of women have Aaron and Evan Steed to thank for coming to their rescue. These owners of a California moving company have volunteered to complete the move for them, completely free of charge. When they first started their business, Meathead Movers, in 1997, the high school athletes were simply looking for a way to earn some extra cash. Back then, their fee was usually $20 and a pizza. As their business grew, the Steeds started getting occasional frantic phone calls from women with little or no money who wanted to quickly move out before their abusers returned home. The sympathetic movers always declined any compensation and rushed to the address to load their belongings. One day, in 2007, the situation turned volatile when the abuser came home in the middle of the move. It was then that the company had decided to ensure the women and the moving crew were both safe. They partnered with a local women's shelter. What was good about that is they could be vetting the requests for help, supporting the women with counseling, and making sure that when we went in, the proper restraining orders were in place, or the police were on hand, and if necessary. Meathead CEO Aaron Steed told Good News. Beth Robb, director of the local women's shelter, said that one of their staff was always on site the day of the move, so they could call law enforcement if things get dicey. Since those days, in 2000, the company has expanded into Santa Barbara, Ventura, Orange, Los Angeles, and San Diego counties. Whenever they open a new office, within the first week, they head to a local women's shelter and knock on their doors. It's a special service that we like to offer, Aaron said on a phone call. These moves become very personal to us, made all the employees so proud, and became a part of our mission statement. He also said the same services are offered to any victim of domestic violence, male or female. Yesterday, the company launched a new campaign that asks other businesses to get creative and help victims of domestic violence, called the hashtag #MoveToEndDV. The Meathead Movers hope to inspire others to rethink how they can work with shelters or help women as they try to rebuild their lives and move into their first home or apartment. Some of our ideas are for businesses to offer free security systems, a dog kennel service, or an auto mechanic to provide oil changes, Aaron said. All of those little things would help to defer costs of starting over. Their goal is to spark 100 new stories of businesses offering services and form a like-minded community. Already, they've received pledges from stylists for free haircuts, from a realtor offering rental searches, and a counselor who's offered to help. We're so excited about it, said Aaron. It brings so much more purpose and passion to our lives. If we can be an example for others, it's so much better. I love this generosity of people doing everything that they can help people who have experienced abuse or violence, helping them get together again and pick themselves up and be able to move on from these horrible, horrible events, and doing everything they can to help that. The generosity in this episode has really been beautiful, and I want to remind everybody that if you have the ability and the funds to be generous, please do, because not everybody does, and it is so greatly appreciated, and it changes people's lives. And another change in people's lives, someone who thought they'd completely lost something forever, very meaningful, was able to find it a few years later, and we'll find out what's gone on there. It actually happened on Valentine's Day, so we'll talk about what happened there when we return from the break. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
Welcome back. When we left off, we were talking about the generosity of people that are protecting those who've been victims of domestic violence. And now, it's been 47 years since Deborah McKenna lost her late husband's beloved class ring in a forest in Maine. But it recently reappeared in the most unlikely place. McKenna was only 16 years old when she lost the ring on a hike in Portland. The precious piece of jewelry had previously belonged to her boyfriend Sean, who she dated for most of high school and college. Despite her heartbreak over the ring, the disappearance in 1973, Sean ended up replacing it with a wedding ring only a few years later. Sean and Deborah were then married for several happy decades until he passed away in 2017 following a long battle with cancer. It had been Valentine's Day when Sean had asked Deborah out on their first date all those years ago. So imagine her surprise when she got a call last month on February 14th from her high school alumni association informing her that someone had found Sean's long-lost ring. Not only that, it had been rediscovered underneath 8 inches of soil in a forest in Helsinki, Finland, more than 3,800 miles from where it had been lost. Helsinki native Marko Serene said he found the ring when he was out for a hike with a metal detector. Upon doing some research on the high school and initials carved into the metal, he reached out to the Morse High School about reuniting the ring with its rightful owner. No one knows how the ring could have ended up on the other side of the ocean, but Deborah is simply happy to have it back in her possession. There was a lot of weeping when I learned that someone had found it and made the effort to reach out and find me. 63-year-old Deborah told the Bangor Daily News. It's very touching in this world of negativity to have decent people step forward and make the effort. There are good people in the world, and we need more of them. Well, I've got another one for her. It's been decades since Coy Featherson last saw his friends from high school, and yet they're all now rallying together to rescue him from homelessness. Back in 1971, Featherson was a very popular student, voted best all-around guy in his high school. He was also a skilled football and baseball player. After he got into college on a football scholarship, he moved to do 15 years of stage work for rock and roll legend Frank Zappa. Unfortunately, Featherson ended up on the streets after he fell on hard times 20 years ago. In addition to his brother being killed, he was laid off from a job. He lost his apartment, and he's been homeless ever since. His luck took a turn last month. However, after a photo of him in his grocery cart of belongings ended up on the front page of the American Statesman for an article on homeless camping in Austin, Texas. Leah Meckling, who was a friend of Featherston's in high school, was just one of his former classmates who was shocked to see his photo featured in the article. She immediately hopped into her car and took off for Austin in hopes of tracking down her old friend. After 4 days of searching, she found Featherston feeding some pigeons outside of a local church. She embraced him, invited him into her truck, and packed up his belongings. Don Vanderberg, another old friend in their high school, Corpus Christi, Texas, welcomed Featherston into his home so that he could sleep on a mattress for the first time in 20 years. His friends have since gotten him new clothes and shoes, and they're helping him sign up for Social Security benefits. They launched a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for more permanent housing, and the page has already raised more than $13,000. Coy is a smart guy with a real gift for art and music, wrote Patrick Judd, who was the one who set up the GoFundMe page. What we were all doing here is to show him he's still so deep in our heart of hearts. Always. When reporters from the American Statesman asked Featherston about the photo and how his luck has turned around since, he simply said, "I kind of had a feeling it would do something. It's been good for me." So trust your feelings, guys, and trust your friends. There are so many people out there that just want to see everyone else succeed, and they just want to see their friends happy and their family members happy. And this is a perfect example of that. There was nothing in it for the people that helped him. They weren't getting anything from it. They weren't getting a tax cut or any benefits like that. They just wanted to see their friend who'd fallen on hard times get back on his feet. This man that had so much potential in high school, they wanted to see him fulfill it as an adult. And it's pretty beautiful to see people rallying together in such a way. So I hope that you guys take this as an opportunity to reach out to your old friends, just to check in with them and see how they are. Maybe catch up. Sometimes you never know how much someone needs that. So just see how your friends are. Reach out to them and be kind to each other. When we come back, as you might have guessed, we're going to talk about the good news, America, in the past few decades. So to the past on today's history of today's date when we return from the break.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back from the break. When we left off, we were talking about the generosity of both strangers and friends being able to remind people of the happiness that they felt in high school. First of all, with someone returning a class ring that had been lost years ago, even though it ended up in another country. And as well, people who had helped their friend who'd fallen on hard times and was struggling with homelessness. And now, we're going to talk about the good news in today's history. So today's date, good things that have happened in the past. 55 years ago today, The Sound of Music premiered in movie theaters, featuring the incredible singing performance of a 28-year-old Julie Andrews as the spunky nanny who goes to work for the Von Trapp family in Austria. The patriarch disciplinarian, played by Christopher Plummer, places the guitar-playing nun in charge of his 7 lonely children. The music, by Rodgers and Hammerstein, contains some of the most memorable songs of stage and screen, including Edelweiss, My Favorite Things, and Do Re Mi. Based on the memoir by the story of the Van Trapp, the memoir The Story of the Van Trapp Family Singers by Maria Von Trapp, the film became one of the highest grossing films of all time, grossing $286 billion worldwide after several re-releases, and it won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. More good news on this date. The semaphore machine was unveiled in Paris for visual communication over long distances, especially from towers, in 1791. Doesn't that seem absurdly early? The U.S. Congress prohibited importation of slaves in 1807 on today's date. Russian serfdom was abolished by Alexander II in 1861. Constantinople Convention was signed, giving free maritime passage through the Suez Canal during the War and Peace in 1888. Miles Davis had his first recording session for his LP Kind of Blue with saxophonist John Coltrane in New York City in 1959. And on today's date in 1933, the movie King Kong premiered in New York City. In 1956, Morocco declared independence from France on today's date. From Britain. CDs and compact disc players were first released in the US and Europe, making LPs easier and virtually eliminated skips and scratchy sounds in 1983, unless they got a scratch. And then, did you know that you could rub chapstick on it to fill in the cracks? That used to be a good trick. Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, San Marino, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan joined the United Nations in 1992 on today's date. And a very happy birthday to Mikhail Gorbachev, the world leader and most responsible for the end of the Cold War between the Russians and the Americans. The last leader of the Soviet Union, his policy of restructuring moved the nation towards democratic and capitalist principles and inadvertently led to its dissolution and an end to the Communist Party rule. He received the Nobel Peace Prize for introducing the policy of glasnost, which he called for increased openness and transparency in government, and gave freedoms to the Soviet people, never previously experienced. His negotiations with President Reagan over strategic nuclear arms led to a lifelong friendship. He was responsible for tearing down the Berlin Wall, separating the East and West Germany. And you can read more about his pivotal progressive figures of the 20th century in his memoirs. And on this day, in 1917, actor and producer Desi Arnaz was born in Cuba. Also a musician, writer, and director, he's best remembered for his role as Ricky Ricardo in the American TV sitcom I Love Lucy, starring his wife, Lucille Ball. But he was a true groundbreaker. With Ball, Arnaz founded the Desilu Productions, an empire that went on to produce The Andy Griffin Show, The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Lucy Show, Mission Impossible, and Star Trek. And is credited with the development of the live audience multi-camera production show style, which became the standard for subsequent sitcoms. Arnaz, who was one of the smartest businessmen in Hollywood, is also credited with Ball as inventing the rerun, which earned them residual income for I Love Lucy. Arnaz also published the CBS network to allow them to show Ball pregnant, after getting a rabbi, priest, and minister all to say there was nothing wrong with it. The Latin band leader, who toured worldwide with his band, the Desi Arnaz Orchestra, died of lung cancer at 69. On this day in 1989, in response to a dramatic depletion of the Earth's ozone layer, 12 European nations agreed to ban the production of chlorofluorocarbons by the end of the century. A volatile derivative of methane, ethane, and propane, CFCs have since been completely phased out worldwide after the diplomats forged a treaty, the Montreal Protocols, which called for a drastic reduction of chemicals. Today, the ozone hole is healing and significantly smaller than decades ago. From 2000 to 2013, ozone levels were restored by 4%, and in some areas of the world, they could be completely healed as early as 2030. It's a victory for diplomacy and for science. Said, since the nations of the world work together, the Nobel Prize chemist forecasted the atmosphere's ozone depletion in 1974. But that obviously did not happen. And I think we probably need to end it there, as I need to start wrapping up. So lots of good things happened. Oh, it's also Daniel Craig's birthday, so happy 52nd birthday to Daniel Craig, the James Bond star. And that's it. So thank you for tuning in to the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write us a nice review. And please rate the episode. It really helps. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you so much, and have an amazing night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.